Okay, it's the 30th of May, 2024. This is Gimbalabs Live Open Spaces. We get together on Thursdays for 90 minutes to build whatever we want to together. The way we do it is before going live, we have a check-in round. So everybody who's here on this call just had a chance to say, hey, how they're doing, what they're thinking about lately. And now we'll jump into the next part of our session where we take a look at this public Miro board. There's a link to it in the chat for this meeting, and if you ever drop by, we're happy to share the link. And right here, you can see there's today's date is on the screen, May 30th, zooming out to orient us. We've been working on this board for the last few months, and we're here kind of in the top center right here. And what we're going to do is for the next 2 minutes, just have a chance to collect our thoughts. So I'm going to duplicate, whoops, I'm pressing the wrong key. I'm going to duplicate this sticky note a couple times. There we go. I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. And in the next 2 minutes, you can just grab as many sticky notes as you want, jot an idea that you have, something you might want to talk about or work on today. And then after 2 minutes, we'll look at what's on the board and decide how to spend our time together. If for any reason you don't have access to this Miro board, feel free also just to unmute and say what you want to work on, and I'll record it for you, or drop it in the meeting chat, and we'll just copy and paste it onto the Miro board. Any questions about what's about to happen? All right, this is one of my favorite 2 minutes of the week, just having a chance to sit and collect my thoughts. Enjoy. See you in 2 minutes. All right, how'd it go?
Pretty good.
Up and up. All right, I'm going to move just some empty stickies down to the bottom, but keep adding them if you're still having ideas. And let's just go from left to right across the page and hear what people added. So the first thing I see is Voltaire, Chang, hard fork, and governance tooling.
Yeah,
Anybody
so I
added
put
this one?
yeah, that was me. That was me. It's just sort of been on my mind. I I've got this governance and collaboration pre doing presentations and sort of it's like a study. It's an incentivized study group for governance stuff, and I just wanted to know like I wanted to put it out there that you know, things are going to change when the hard fork happens, and like I just saw a thing on that Hoskinson is in the ICC, the Interim Constitutional Committee, and that's kind of got me sort of buzzed up about it. So I just wanted to put it down. I don't know if it's up, you know, just to let people know that that's what I'm thinking about and how that's going to change our dev work. Um, and then the next one is finding and promoting cool Catalyst projects, groups, and people. That's the other thing that's on my mind, is writing reviews and sort of, you know, seeing what's up with Catalyst. And you know, ultimately, well, one of the beautiful things about Catalyst is it's a great way to sort of find, you know, who's doing things and new people wandering through. And that I want to remind myself is like one of the real values of the thing. So
Well said. Yeah, that's awesome. How about this one? API call to NMaker endpoint.
Well, that's mine. That's one of the things that I've been working on. So I have a project where I'm trying to make a user minted. So the user creates the object and then mints. And I want to use the NMaker API as my minting platform. And it just, you know, I have some examples of a curl command that would build sort of the API call to this specific endpoint that carries the metadata of the NFT. But I'm just trying to work on converting that into a JavaScript function instead of a curl command. And I have a lot of questions about how to initiate that. That's it.
Excellent. Okay. That sounds like a fun technical thing. Is it okay if I drag this over to the education space? We could maybe have a breakout room about that.
100%. Move it. Yep.
How about this one? Looking for Nix expert. Aren't we all?
Yeah, I'm getting around. I can make a Docker image. Only the problem is it's 1 GB large because it takes Nix builds everything like specific for something, and then you can import. It takes all the dependency with it, and it uses 3 versions of glibc, 3 versions of the Cardano node, and 3 versions
Right.
of the CLI. So
Right.
it's perfectly isolated, but yeah, not ideal for my purposes at the moment.
I grew up playing the hide and go seek game Sardines in a Can, and that's perfectly isolated, but you can pack too many people in. The game is right. The person who's it hides, and everybody else is trying to find them, and one by one you hide in a closet, right? Which is great for like a little hormonal 13-year-old. It's kind of a funny thing to do, but it, you know, at some point you're no longer isolated. You're all stuffed in there together. And it sounds like we're turning all these programs into sardines in a can. I don't know if that's a metaphor that works. Just
Yeah,
Alex, what do you think?
it's a balancing
Yeah.
act, but I really like Flatpak
Cool.
apps.
So Martin, you're saying that you put your like deployment stuff in one part and your development stuff in another part, and then somehow it ends up all in a Docker image, and you don't want it.
No, I think I need like if you I want to build the image, but I need Bash to start the script. I need Cardano CLI, and I need the polluted binary. So Docker command is like a Nix script or something. Docker build. It takes all these dependencies and it puts them inside the image to run.
Let's maybe
exactly
jump to a
what you need.
breakout room and look at this together, because I don't know. I built a couple of Docker images with Nix, and I want to see how it is.
Yeah, it could be that I did it totally wrong.
That if I drop this one over here, is that okay?
Yeah, cool, man.
Already moved Jonah's here, and yeah, we can combine these. I'd be happy to look at that. And then Newman shared in the Gimbalabs Discord it looks like the live example on plutuspbl.io is not working at this moment. It's urgent to fix that. And if there's time during this meeting, that's great. Otherwise, I'm eager to jump into that after today's call. And then I added a note here, um, thinking about our upcoming work of admin tokens and reviewer tokens in the contribution prototype, right? These are kind of on-chain artifacts that are going to help us push a conversation about policies and rules. Who gets an admin token? Who gets a reviewer token? How does that work? How is work scoped? We're right on the doorstep of some really interesting work in all of that stuff. I don't know how much we'll have time to cover today, but I just wanted to kind of throw these ideas out there. And I wanted to mention, Nori mentioned a book to me called Work with Source. It's by an author named Tom Nixon. And it's been really good for thinking about the unspoken piece of a lot of the work we do with uh, whatever we call, these kind, whether we say sociocracy or whether we say a non-hierarchical organization, or there's lots of other terminology we can use. This book points out that still somebody took the first step on a project and is therefore playing a key role in a project, right? So Ken took the first step on the redesign of Gimbalabs.com. Whoever else contributes to that project, nobody is going to replace Ken as the person who took the first step there. Martin's been doing a lot of work kind of figuring out how we can make a development stack more accessible through the game changer work. And Adriano will always be the person who initialized game changer. He's the source of that work. And Martin, you're the source of kind of this more focused work on building a Docker image that serves these purposes and exploring these new tools. So at any stage, somebody is going to have taken that first step. And that can be confusing to think about if we're trying not to have a hierarchy, but at the same time, we have to recognize this natural rhythm to things. And I'm eager. I definitely recommend reading this. If anybody has time to read, the book is called Work with Source by Tom Nixon. But I'm eager to kind of play with that idea and see what kind of initiatives we have running in each of these circles, right? In the education circle, we have an initiative called Plutus PBL 2024. There's a clear thing to be working on there, right? The Gimbalabs.com redesign is a clear initiative. And I'm wondering how the other circles might get to that point and what it means for us moving forward. So just wanted to throw those ideas out there. And this is something I'd be really interested in going deeper into when the time feels right over these next few months.
I just want to add,
Jonah,
James.
yeah, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, you answered my question we were talking, but this is really interesting because I'm in one of the Intersect working groups, which is the Gov tools, and this is something that we are trying to figure out as well. There is, how do you build collaboratively on tools, from start to finish, and kind of what you mentioned here about, roles and hierarchy is very important. So it's interesting because there's some overlap here. If you feel like joining once you have some insights, that would be pretty awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope that this
Gimbalabs.
can serve as source material. Alex, sorry.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. Gimbalabs, I was just commenting on what Jonas said. Gimbalabs in many ways models what Intersect does, just with fingers, pen and paper, and quite a few things we can learn here about how Intersect will work in the future.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And we have it's a little bit of a Well, it's a project we're going to come back around to, but there just hasn't been sufficient time. Roberto Morano and I have been working on it in the background. To support Dandelion, we got a grant from Intersect. Okay, just to keep Dandelion running for free for another year, and to update the endpoints for the Conway era. But one of the other deliverables is the contribution prototype we've been just starting to play around with in this space. We're going to create an instance of that just to handle this Intersect grant and bring that back. So any work we do here on this question can help us present back, okay, here, we got this Intersect grant. Here's the on-chain tool we used to administer it. And here's what we've learned so far along the way. Plus, probably the most important part, here's the questions we still have going forward. And so it'll be really good to have a very tangible touch point with Intersect to kind of share out on that work and think about what we might want to do next. And then these ones, were these Newman or did somebody else add these? And we'll cover these again and again, but just the quick answer, do students need a Discord account to take the course in Andamio? No, you can view content for free without ever logging in. What we use the Discord accounts for is to give people access to some of the features they might expect in an LMS. And that we'll publish documentation and blog posts about this over the next few weeks. But basically, an example, we had the feature request last year that, when I'm working through a course, I want, or maybe I expect as a user, the platform to show me where I left off so I can pick up right there. And that's a feature that you can only provide if somehow you're tracking the user, right? So we don't insist on tracking anything, and our data policy will be very clear on this. We're only going to collect data about people's progress through the platform, through a course, if they want to, if it serves them, right? So if you want the ability to have a little green light turn on after you look at each lesson, and you want the ability to pick up where you left off, for example, yeah, you can make an account and now you'll have that feature, right? But if you don't want to make an account, you can still just read all of the material without ever doing that. Separately, there's an on-chain component to courses in Andamio that's optional as well. It comes with benefits for using it in terms of connecting to network and building credentials. And even if somebody takes that option, what we store in a database alongside a Discord account and what's on chain are completely independent from each other. Okay. They're just combining in the front end in the user experience, but there's no formal connection made between the two. So more to come on that. And to this question, do you need an alternative account? You don't. Okay, so people will be able to be course creators or students all with a single login. Good question. I know, all caps. Anybody have an opinion on this question right here? All caps Ada or not?
That's what I would do. I'd do the T lowercase and then all caps Ada.
Okay.
That's what I think. My opinion.
I've seen it both ways, yeah. If anybody has a strong opinion, we can go with a standard. That feels okay to let that one float.
When I have a strong opinion, they can themselves do this.
Exactly. That's the policy. Go and make the changes. Cool. So Gov tooling, if we say this is on the way, but maybe not a focus today, does that sound okay to folks? This is great. Catalyst, I think that's a great call to action. We can all be looking at proposals on our own time. This to me, I've said it before and believe it more than ever. This is the best benefit of Catalyst is it makes people meet each other, right? What does a catalyst do in the chemistry lab? Just speeds things up. So those molecules interact faster than they would have otherwise. And this is what we all have a chance to do. So I hope people have a chance to go read some proposals, make some new friends. But looks like maybe we've got 2 breakout rooms today. One where we can take a look at the NMaker endpoints, see if we can get this to work, and then if time, do some troubleshooting. And then we'll have another one for builders to play around with Nix. I'm going to open up 3 breakout rooms right now, just in case anybody needs them. It looks like, how would people feel if we stayed in the main room to look at some JavaScript stuff today? Would that be all right? And then we've got the breakout rooms for anything else people want to do. So if you guys want to choose one for this, go for it. And if anybody wants to peel off and do anything else, of course you can. Maybe Jonah to kind of, are you prepared to share screen and show us current status and then we can look at it together?
If you give me a few minutes, I can do that. I haven't
Yeah.
actually don't have it pulled up at the minute right now.
Cool.
But let
Take
me
a moment
see.
to do that.
Okay.
And yeah, if anybody's jumping to breakout room, see you soon. Otherwise, we'll be here talking a little bit of education and technology. While Jonah's getting that pulled up, I'll just show you the problem that we have right now. Newman already shared it in the Gimbalabs Discord, but here at plutuspbl.io, you go to live examples. Actually, I think I'm in the wrong browser window. Second. I need the one with the Testnet wallet. Let's try that again. So yeah, here on the live examples page, I should be able to connect my testnet wallet. I can see that I do have the pre-prod token, but minting appears to not be working. And I just tested it myself and I couldn't mint a new token from a different wallet. But also look at this, it says cannot find the faucet UTXO. So something's wrong right here. The beauty of this is that this is an insecure application, and there's a few different things that might have gone wrong. But it's kind of built that way on purpose so we can find these mistakes. So it'll be fun to troubleshoot this and try to figure out what happened here. And even if that doesn't happen during today's meeting, we'll be sure to add some documentation as to what happened right here. But if you're just getting started with the course, we'll have this working again by the end of the day. Jonah, was that enough time or should somebody else riff?
Can someone else riff? Give me one more second, sorry.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to say welcome to new folks. I see Alfin, Alfino, Arif, Avril, hey, and Harsha showed up. Hey, Harsha.
Oh, hey, sorry.
Hey, man. If you are brand new here, what's on my screen right now is a companion site for our Plutus PBL 2024 course. This is at plutuspbl.io. Anybody can access this website. From here, you can start the course, which looks like this. We're just putting finishing touches on module 102, and these modules will continue to roll out. There is the live examples. This is what there's a little troubleshooting to do right here. And then here, there's links to a bunch of different GitHub repositories where work is underway. And so, for example, the site we're looking at right here at plutuspbl.io, you can see the source code directly in the PPBL 2024 front end. And so this is where we're going to have to fix something. But also this is where, let me pull up an example. Did we use it? Jonah, have you ever used a library, excuse me, called TanStack React Query? Okay,
I have not used that one.
this might be relevant to what you're working on. If you feel good about a curl command, this
Okay.
might be it. This is my favorite library right now for making different sorts of queries.
Okay.
So we might end up looking at that. And I was just looking up here for an example for you of where we use it in this.
Yeah, so just to give you where I'm at. So I built this in React. I've done it in vanilla HTML CSS once, then I built it in React.
Nice.
And I had trouble in getting mesh to work because I just did vanilla React and I didn't do Next.js, I think is what mesh templates are built in. So I attempted to do a manual install and I think I just bugged it up because I went in and touched things I shouldn't have touched. So I backed out and I did it again, but this time I built it with I used something called Use Cardano React, which is a library someone else made to do the connection. And they said they may no longer support it. So now I'm kind of in a little quagmire where I don't know if I should go back to and rebuild it using React.
Got it.
Or
Okay.
sorry, using whatever mesh is using. But let me share my screen. I'll show you what it looks like. So you can just see it. Okay, so what it looks like. The functionalities, you sort of use these buttons to change aspects of the SVG graphic. And then you can change sort of like a message that is projected. And then I have this where you confirm what you want. So this will be what would eventually be minted. I'm going to want to have another button that is going to be like a minting button. But what this gives you is, whoops, not that. Sorry about that. I can't see. This gives me a base 64 of the image. Here I have it converted to a base 64, and I want to package this into metadata that would fit, this standard here, which is the end maker. I'm using a JavaScript function. I have the wallet connecting right now through this other, I don't have any plugged in, but the wallet connect is through the use Cardano React library. So that's kind of where I'm at. Let me stop sharing.
So this, you can create, how is the image being stored? It looked like a binary string there.
Yeah, so exactly. So right now the image is, I'm using something called HTML canvas, which uses a define all this stuff. I haven't looked at this in a while, but so I'm using a function that actually takes like a picture of a certain area of my web page and then converts it into a base 64,
Okay.
which is I think the easiest way to send that image via a fetch post command is what I found, is that rather than sending a PNG, if I convert it to a base 64, I can just put it in a simple post. And that's why I've done that. So that's why it looks as a string.
Okay. And where do you want to send the image to?
So the image I want to send to this endmaker endpoint, which is like essentially it's attached to it. So endmaker has like an APIs in their backend so that you can send, and one of them is called upload NFT, which essentially takes that metadata form, which in my case would contain the image as a base 64. It then takes that and I believe in their backend, it puts it onto the IPFS and then makes it mintable as like it adds it to your project essentially in their backend.
Excellent. And you've confirmed via like a terminal command that this works, that you can upload the output of your web app this way?
No, so that exactly. So I've tested it without, I've tested the endpoint just statically by sending it, the metadata in the right format on their backend, but not through my account. They have a way to test, on their website, you can test the endpoints to see if what you're sending is correct. It took me quite a bit of time to get that correct. But that's part of my question and my problem is I have not done it through my website yet. And one of my questions I have is, because I'm very novice as a developer, I don't even know that if I'm running this locally on my laptop, if I can send it to their endpoint. Like, do I need to have it hosted in a live site to test the functionality? Was one of the questions I had.
Great question. Okay. You should be able to use their endpoints from anywhere. A local environment, that should be fine.
Okay.
And there's ways we could double check that.
And then a greater design pattern question I have, because I've gotten conflicting information on this, maybe you could also help, is whether I should hide my API keys eventually when they're for mainnet. Right now they're testnet, so it doesn't matter. Like, should I hide them and put them in the back end, or is it okay to have them in this JavaScript function in the front end of the website?
Definitely. Okay, so you definitely want to hide those. And that we would take a look at environment variables to see how that works.
Okay.
How would you intend to deploy this application after it's built?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put it on a Contabo server, which is going to be running in Ubuntu, and I'll have to set it up. That's the other hurdle I have is setting up the database backend to launch the app, which is something going to be new for me as well.
Congrats, though. This is all the stuff. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, I really was excited when I saw that you went from doing, Plutus and Haskell stuff to doing the front end, which you added, like, I don't know, last year or something, which I found very exciting because that's part of the project. You're going to build a full project. You're going to have to understand all of this part of the stack, and showing that how that works is hard. It's a lot. You think I was very naive in my understanding at the beginning of this journey to what I would need to be developing. I thought I would just need to put a website together, which is the front end. And then you realize there's all this other stuff that needs to communicate to make it actually into a working dApp. So
you have a compelling need to know these things, which is great. That's what we would hope for anybody who's learning this stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so one question that I don't know is whether or not this binary format that you're creating for the image
the
is
base 64.
The base 64 string that represents the image. Is that going to be accepted by the endmaker endpoint?
Yes, it is. That is one of their, yes.
Okay. So basically, have you tested yet the ability, basically, we saw it in your browser console the contents of this string,
Right.
and you've run a successful request via curl
No, I
to,
have not.
oh, okay.
I have not. The curl comes from a developer his name is El Raulito. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yep,
He's
yep.
the one yeah. So he made about a year ago through a Catalyst proposal project, he made an IoT device that automatically mints and uploads an image from a camera. And when he posted about that, I realized that that's kind of what I needed, was that curl command. The automated minting is what I'm looking for. Like, how do I have someone push a button and have the whole minting process happen through NMaker, where they are asked to pay, the image is sent to the API, is minted, and they're sent back to their wallet, the NFT. That's the design pattern I want.
Okay.
And yeah.
And you said you're using React now. Are
Right.
you using a framework on top of React, like Next or anything like that?
I'm using Bootstrap, which this is one of the issues. I'm using a Bootstrap React project sort of framework. I didn't use Next, which I should have, because that way I could use Mesh and very easily. But Next was a little confusing to me, and I thought that like what I call vanilla React was a little bit more simple, because those are the tutorials that I found at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So yes, it's vanilla React, and I tried to move it to Next React once, but there was some, like, my JavaScript functions got bugged up because of how I'm targeting the elements within the web page are different slightly between React and Next React. It's like,
yes. Okay, here's the good news.
Yeah.
You really haven't wasted time by using Bootstrap.
okay,
And the beauty of React is whenever you build components with it, a lot of them can just be copied and pasted to another, a framework on top of it. So everything you've already done is going to be relevant for Next.
awesome.
Bootstrap is really good for creating a quick prototype where your only concern is what's going to show up in the browser, right? And
Right.
you've got all the client-side access. That's great. But you pretty quickly hit a limit in what you're able to do on any backend. And I think you've probably encountered that limit precisely right here. Okay. So I hear you that Next is going to be kind of a little bit more complicated than this. And there's a couple of patterns just when you think about a Next application. The language they use is absolutely not beginner friendly. You got this whole server side rendering and client side rendering and static site generation, all these things, which
Right.
after you're familiar with those terms, they are actually helpful because they mean exactly what they say. They're actually nice and precise, but it's hard. It's hard to like get a real feel for all that at once.
Right.
What I would recommend. Okay.
You're hitting right on my big fear about doing this, is that because what I'm doing is I'm taking an SVG graphic, which is sitting in the front end, and I'm trying to adjust elements of that SVG, and I just don't know, like, when it renders, like when I then capture the screen capture, am I getting the pre-rendered version or right? Because that's what's confusing to me, is when does Next render stuff to the front end and when is it not?
The beauty is
Yes,
you've done something challenging already, right? Just creating that string, you said base 64 string, right?
Yeah.
Just creating that base 64 string is already an accomplishment. And now that you have a string of data, passing that back and forth between a front end and a back end is trivial.
Okay.
If you're brand new to passing data back and forth, that's the biggest learning curve right here. But I want to show you just a couple things. Okay, first of all, this is a little bit backwards. Like, if Next.js is already a bit complicated, I'm going to show you this right here is even one step beyond that. but this is 100% worth learning. This is called T3, create t3.gg. You might hear it
Okay.
referred to as T3 app. Okay.
Okay.
And all it does is it combines these 6 components. Okay. Next.js with TypeScript ready to go, with Tailwind for styling, which you might already be familiar with, and
A
then
little
these
bit.
3 things, TRPC, Prisma, and Nextoff. Okay.
Okay.
TRPC, right? If your front end and back end are TypeScript, you can't beat TRPC. This allows you to create very precisely your own routers. Don't worry about what that means yet, and you don't have to worry about it right away.
It's like React routers or something different than that.
It's yes, but upgraded.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Okay.
and no, and React router is used to read the URL in your web browser
Right.
and then
Navigate.
use the values in the shape of the URL to accomplish things. This goes a different step beyond that. So actually, they are complementary tools in this case.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Prisma helps you spin up databases very quickly. So if you're starting to realize, hey, I need to get started with databases, I don't think there's a better tool for somebody who's just getting started than T3 app with Prisma working in it to learn all of that, and it'll get you going. And then authentication if you want it. Next
Right.
off.
And that's right. That's just classic
Right.
non-crypto
Straightforward.
based. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So this is all
Awesome.
here. And the
That's
document.
homework. You gave me a lot of homework.
Oh, dude, this tutorial is really good. 3 hour. It's a 3 hour tutorial. You're not gonna do
Okay.
it all at once.
Yeah.
But it's really, really good. And so,
Awesome.
like, right, a lot of documentation doesn't start with a video. These guys know that they've worked really hard to build this thing. There's a distinction here between app router and pages router. I would recommend doing the pages router for now, even though it's app router is the newer version of Next. But at this moment, pages router is going to make it a little bit easier to work with mesh.
Okay.
Okay,
All
so
right.
for now, but how long
Okay.
is this
About
video?
a year and a half
Yeah,
ago.
3 hours as well. This
Okay.
is the one. Pages version of this 3 hour video. It'll blow you away. I'm
Perfect.
certain with
I
where
have
you
it
are.
pulled up right now.
Cool. Now,
Awesome.
let me just show you 2 more things about what Next provides for us. So this right here, this is on the public repo. I'll put it in the chat again for the Plutus PBL website. Okay.
Okay.
And like any React project, and certainly any Next.js project, we've got our source folder right here, and the source folder has a different subdirectories in it. We've got pages. This is where our routes come from. So there's the index, there's the calendar, our live
Right.
examples page, a blog. Okay. This is straightforward. And all the routing is set up, right? So we don't have to configure any sort of React router to accomplish all of this. Next gives us this out of the box. Okay.
Okay. And this structure's set by Next, like pages, that the name of that folder is a Next.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If you start a Next application, and like I just suggested, right, you've got the option these days when you start a Next app, should it have an app router or a pages router? App router is awesome, but it doesn't quite talk nicely to mesh at this moment. There's very clear reasons for that, and the upgrades are coming soon. They're just not quite published yet. So at this moment, working with pages is fine, right?
Okay.
But when you set up a Next project with pages router, and then you simply drop files, file
Oh,
name.tsx into this pages router. This is why when I go to plutuspbl.io/calendar, there's a page for calendar, right? And what are some other names of files here? There's live-examples, right? That's why I can go to the route live-examples.
Okay.
Okay. And that's this is why people use Next, is because all of that plumbing is just ready for you. Okay. But
That's all. Mhm.
there's some other directories. Where was I? Source. Components is pretty standard in any React project. You'll separate your pages from your components.
Mhm.
And so in the components, this is usually, you're going to find a lot of things here, but you can see I have like a calendar component. That's what I pull in just to show the calendar. And if I looked at the calendar page, I would see that I was importing this. Let's just do that for just a second. Pages, calendar. Oh no, this doesn't have, this is just hard coded here. Whoops,
Okay.
that was a bad example. But let's look at the other one. There was a navigation bar. Okay, so a bunch of links across the top of the page and all this nav stuff that's going to be repeated across the site. Right here, I can just, and where do I use it? Use it at my app. I just put that navigation at the top of the
Right.
page, right? And it's
Okay.
reused. Okay, so that's component. Standard, you're going to see that everywhere. You can go deeper into that anytime. But there's also a directory here that says server API. And this is where things get interesting. Now, this is a T3 app. It's a very simple one, and we're not even using a lot of its features. There's no Nextauth enabled. We're not using Prisma because there's no backend for this project, but we are using TRPC. And this is what allows us to create endpoints that are
Okay.
not visible directly from the front end. All of the code in our server API directory is opaque to the client browser.
Okay.
Obviously, it's still an open source project. Anybody can just come look at it, right?
Yeah,
But
but that's,
it's
yeah.
not being rendered on the client side.
Okay.
So look at how this thing works. And this is the standard outcome that you're going to see here. We create a TRPC router with an arbitrary name
Okay.
and a collection of endpoints.
Okay.
In
So the
this
post,
case,
this
yeah,
post router, you post is theirs, and you named yours post router. That's your naming convention.
yeah. And actually,
Yeah.
post router is the boilerplate that comes with T3 app. I left it here just
Okay.
so people could orient themselves to this project. You typically wouldn't leave it here,
Okay.
right? But the two that I added are PPBL 2024 mint transaction
Okay.
and faucet.
Can you
And
show
both
me that route
exactly.
there?
Exactly, right? So I'm just showing you the structure. So now in the API directory, okay, we've got our root. I didn't have to touch this file. This is boilerplate TRPC. You are unlikely to need to touch this when you're just getting started.
Okay.
You will need to touch root.ts to add your custom routes, but it's just
Okay.
by importing them and adding them right here. And
Right.
then in our routers folder, here's faucet, post, and
Okay.
mint.
Can I just see what post that one looks like? I just want to see
Oh
what
yeah,
I'm looking at.
let's look at the boilerplate first, right? So post, this is a structure that is very, very consistent across uses. It'll take you a couple times of looking at it to wrap your head around it, but this is very standard boilerplate. Okay, so the post router,
Mm-hmm.
public procedure, right? Essentially a public endpoint called
Mhm.
hello that returns a hello world. In this case, with a variable, it takes an input. Okay, fine, hello.
Mm-hmm. You have no bearer token on this. It's just open, right? So that's why that's not in there.
On
or anything
in
like
this
that.
case,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly, right. So you're already a step ahead there. You're ready to implement that. Okay.
Okay.
Let's look at the minting one for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
This shows a couple of key things. This shows you that you can pull in mesh, not the React part, because we're not actually, this is vanilla JavaScript. Well, it's TypeScript, right? But either way,
Mm-hmm.
TypeScript, JavaScript. Notice this is not a TSX file,
Right.
right? This is where I can use all sorts of vanilla JavaScript or TypeScript functions. but I can't render the content itself. That's not what this is. This is just doing all of the business logic in the background, and Mesh Core is ready for this. We are also pulling in an environment variable. In this case, there's two of them. There's a signing key, a private key, and there's an API key, in this case for Maestro, but this is similar to what it would look like to add the EnMaker key.
I love you can do this all in a single file. This does
Yeah.
all of it at once. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so there's some boilerplate here. You'll have to learn how environment variables work. And if you get stuck there, I can help you again with that.
Okay.
But a lot of the boilerplates here. Now, I deployed this via Vercel because it's easy.
Right. That's what I'm also.
And
Yeah,
so-
that's the other one, Vercel.
Vercel, right? So
I should have started with Next and Vercel. Those are like the project.
Well,
Everything
but
is
you're,
done
and
that
then
way.
again, I don't think you wasted that much time.
Okay.
Really. Like you're making great progress already. And I think because you've already witnessed a couple of bottlenecks firsthand, you're going to start to realize, oh, shoot, wow, T3 is pretty great.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Okay, so we pull those in. These are stored locally in a .env file that is in our git ignore, so we never push that up to the public repo. And then Vercel handles environment variables at deployment time. And there's a web interface where you can share those. I don't feel great about putting a private key even into Vercel's servers, even if they tell me that it's encrypted.
Mm-hmm.
But for a pre-prod project, I'm okay with it. I
Right.
wouldn't do this for a project deployed on mainnet, right? I wouldn't use Vercel for that.
So what's the alternative? What will be your design?
Running
alternative
your
for
own
that?
server, yeah, and like a
Okay.
cloud server where
Yeah.
I don't have
Oh, I
full
see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
transparency. Yeah,
And
right.
then
I
you
don't have
could
full
put
transparency.
if you did do that, you could put your private key in this const though, right? If as long as it was on your private server, that's the issue for you.
As long as it's properly hidden from the eyes that want to see it. Right. So that's a different topic, but I'm happy to use Vercel for something like this because it makes my life easy. If I was building for production on mainnet, I probably wouldn't do this bit right here. But
Yeah.
API keys, if somebody finds my API key, it's not the end of the world. They can't steal my money.
Right.
Right.
So
I can
the
change that.
minting one you're worried about because there's value in that. I was thinking about making that minting wallet. Tell me what you think about this. The minting wallet would have just enough to cover like 3 mints, but then every time someone paid, because I want people to pay and mint immediately, but that you can't really do that. There has to be some funds already
That,
there.
you know what, that could work really nicely. Yeah, you could say, all right, I am going to expose this signing key, but there's never going to be more than a couple of ADA at
Right.
that wallet.
That was kind of my plan.
That's reasonable.
Okay.
It wouldn't work at a scale of 1 million users, but
Right.
that's a problem for later.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
as they say.
exactly. You get that problem, then you deal with it. So let's
All
look
right,
at
so
the
I have a
rest.
question. Can I have one
Yeah.
more question here? If you're eventually we're going to go to mainnet, would you design first, deploy with Vercel, and then adjust, or would you just skip Vercel altogether?
I would try to build applications in a way that I didn't need that I wasn't calling a signing key as an environment variable. I could do everything with Next and Vercel, but maybe for anything that's handling transaction signing with a key, I would lock that down on a separate server.
Okay, I see. All right.
And that's exactly what we've done. As we've been looking at on Domio, we've been thinking about ways, when are we going to want the application to sign a transaction? Any case where that needs to happen, the server responsible for that can be isolated. Its only job needs to be to sign transactions, but everything else can be kept over here.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, it makes sense. Mhm.
And then all sorts of stuff happens in here. And this is all just mesh stuff, right? We define a minting policy with a signature. Here's a call to a Maestro provider. We set that up so we can use it. the list goes on. We build an app wallet that can sign these transactions. But we finally, right, that's all just the extra stuff. We finally get to the boilerplate that should look familiar from the post router. And we could do all sorts of stuff inside of here. So here's a router. This is the one we're exporting and importing over in the root.
Mm-hmm.
It's a TRPC router, just like the post one. And then we some logic. Okay, we need one endpoint that gives us the forging script, another one that gives us the list of token names. I have a feeling this is the one that's broken right now. And then here's our sign and submit the transaction endpoint. So endpoints, they can do anything. They can draw on data from any number of other APIs. They can draw on data from your own database, which is where the T3 app really shines, because when you watch that video, you'll see how to set up a Prisma file to provision a database. And then once you've provisioned that database, the T3 app is going to generate all of the types you need to be type safe against that database, and it seamlessly integrates with these TRPC endpoints.
Okay.
Now you're talking to your database, you're storing information, you're retrieving information from there, you're talking to as much of the outside world as you need to. In the case right here, sure, it's Maestro, but it could just as easily be anything, NMaker and beyond. And then
Is the database in TypeScript? What's the management language?
I'll show you an example of that. The database, okay, so Prisma, the database is generated by the Prisma ORM, right? And it's for TypeScript, but it's written in a file.
Have you written scripts to query your database before? Is that hard to do?
Oh, it's a delight. It's easy.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
It's easy. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's where this tutorial will get you to.
Okay.
Is understanding how to set that up for the first time and to write queries against it. You create, here's what I was looking for. You create this file called schema.prisma, right? And it's a very specific file that that has specific syntax for how to define your database tables and the field for each one. And there's a single configuration line at the top of that file where you put the URL of your database. So I'm using Supabase for a development project right now, and it took me a few minutes to create a Supabase account, a free one, to get my custom URL from there. I copied and pasted into this file, and I was off and running.
Oh, that's good. So I was thinking about your site, because when I minted my token to join the PBL 2024. You asked for a name, right? To name the token, but then you provided also something for your tracking mechanism, right? So you knew how many tokens were minted or what sequence they were minted in. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because that's something I want to have to do. I'm not going to allow the people to name the token necessarily, just or the NFT
totally.
that they mint. But I want to be able to track them somehow. So who was minted first, second, third? I was thinking just putting it in an order, but is that a script that you have to write that kind of queries where you're like, how are you keeping track of that stuff?
Awesome question. Okay. This is not a direct answer to your question, but just as a resource, this assignment just went live, and we're gonna press publish on the rest of the lessons in the new module today. Okay.
Awesome.
But in this assignment, there's a couple of things. And the key thing to understand, we were just looking at the source code for this project at plutuspbl.io right here. And remember, this doesn't actually have, I mean, there's a directory called server API, right?
Yes.
But this application doesn't have a database. It does have server-side functions, all of these functions that we were just looking at in routers would run on the Vercel servers.
Okay.
All right.
So, and that's enough to keep track of token counting and things like that. Or maybe I don't
Well,
need a
no,
database.
that's just the active. Think of that as the RAM, right? That's just where the action is happening. But where is the
Gotcha.
storage? There's no database in this project. So what is there? There's a blockchain. So
Okay.
when you mint a token, you're minting it onto chain, and you're doing a couple things, right? So this explains how we're minting tokens in pairs, actually.
Okay.
Okay. So you got a token in your wallet with this policy ID, and when you did, a duplicate token with a slightly different name was also minted. You got one with a 222 prefix and your custom name. And at the same time, the same name with a 100 prefix was minted.
Love this. Oh, this is
This is what
great.
SIP68 suggests.
So this is your reference token. Is this a reference token and the actual token? Is that
Exactly. So if I look at this policy ID on Cardano scan, you can see each of these minting events right here.
Yeah.
And these tokens were minted in pairs.
Okay.
Okay.
And are you using the reference token later, or are you just using it to track who minted? Or you have
Yeah,
plans
no,
to?
we're using it. We're really, I mean, so first of all, we know that, okay, 37 people have signed up for this course right now. 74
Right.
tokens have been minted, right?
Right.
If I wanted to know who signed up first, I would just look at which of these tokens was minted first,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, yeah, these 100 tokens, can look at let's look at the minting transaction, right? Where both of these tokens were minted, corresponding names. And the 100 token was sent to a validator address. That's the one we were just looking at. Oh, no, sorry. We were just looking at the policy ID. This is the validator address. And you can see 37 tokens like we expect. All of them have the 100 prefix, right?
Okay.
And in any of these transactions, if I look at the UTXOs and I look at the datum, you're familiar with looking at datum
Yep.
on Cardano scan? Yep. So I can inspect this, and sure enough, there's some datum right here. Now, this datum here and the validator that accompanies it are designed for learning purposes. We're really just trying to give people a way to play with this, and you'll have the opportunity to do this in module 102.
Okay.
But just for reference, everybody has a lucky number. The default lucky number is 2024, but the assignment right here is to change that lucky number. So you'll get walked through how to do that.
Okay.
Then there's two other arbitrary fields. This is just a string that we call like learner info. And this
you're
is
providing
called,
these, right?
yeah,
These
we're
are,
just,
yeah.
this is just some, what is this string right here? Yeah, just info, right?
Okay.
So the placeholder is just the word info, but it's an optional assignment for people to try to change it. And there's a validator that allows people to do it. And this is just a way to give people that experience of getting hands-on with manipulating data.
Nice. And that should, in theory, then affect the token, the user token. I don't know what they call the paired, the other one.
Yeah, so it's an association. And this, right, everything about NFTs, we've covered this before in this space. It's just an arbitrary decision that works because people are using it at scale. And so the same thing is happening here, right? We have this standard that says, okay, if you mint two tokens with the same policy ID and the names match except for their prefixes, then we can make some claims about the relationship between those tokens. So in order to change your lucky number, you do need to include your 222 token from your wallet in the transaction, along
Okay.
with the UTXO from this validator address that holds the corresponding 100 token.
Well, that's interesting now, because that means you can't change a token you don't have access to, right? Only the
Correct.
user can update the token.
Correct.
Interesting. So can you use SIP68 to change a fungible token? You could, right? But they'd have to submit the fungible token themselves.
Yeah,
To
you
the-
could, right? And then you'd have to get into the question, well, if 1,000 or 1,000,000 of these fungible tokens exist, can any holder of a single one of those change
All
the
of them.
information about them?
Right.
Right. Or
That's-
maybe, or only if I hold more than half of them can I make a change, right? There's all sorts of stuff you could play with there. And you can write all of that in a validator.
Okay. And would that also work for, let's say you had like Anthem token, which is a cool concept this guy did. He made a single token that is divisible to whatever the maximum allowed by Cardano was. I can't remember, but so it's got like 50,000 decimal points or something. I don't know what it is.
Nice.
Right. So
Nice.
it's really a single token. Everybody takes a portion of it is what you
Right.
get. Would that work the same way? Like, would you then be able to like affect all of them with just changing the one? If it was a
Yeah,
68?
I haven't yet seen a compelling use case for that.
I
That's
have
it.
one. I have one.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'll say it publicly on the space. I don't care. Someone will probably take it and it will be really successful. But I was thinking of having like a message token
Right.
where you could, every holder of the token, it would have a message on it that you'd see in the wallet, and then anybody would be a race condition where anybody could update that message at any time. So it's almost like a Twitter, but with only a single feed, right?
Right.
And the pace would be the pace of the blockchain.
Right.
So that, I would say good morning, and then you would say, have a good day, and then someone else would change it. And whoever was willing to pay the transaction fee to change a token would get whatever people saw that until it was changed again. I think it'd become a fun game, maybe.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, that could be a roadmap for like a shared advertising thing, right? Like, hey,
Yes.
you can capture revenues from this, and in
Yes.
order to be part of this, you must display this banner on your website. But what are you going to be advertising on any given day? Whoever paid most recently to update it.
Yes, I love that. That's a brilliant business
That's
case
interesting.
use case
That's
for it.
kinda
I
fun.
was
That'd
There
be
you
a
go.
fun prototype to build. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but I thought it was there. I'm interested. There's a fellow on Ethereum who's kind of a weird guy. Some people hate him, some people love him, but he's sort of like and he does a lot of like weird scammy stuff. And he sort of planted this idea. He's the guy who launched the Pepe token on Ethereum.
Okay.
But it's called The Pond was the site that he launched it from. And one of the interesting things, because it's, smart contract based tokens, is that he made the tokens transferable by anybody to anyone, which people thought was a scam. So people aped in and bought all these tokens and then realized that anybody could send the tokens you had to anybody else at any time. So people were like, he's just scamming everybody, taking money. But what he was doing in reality is he was tracking the wallets that minted, and then he gifted everybody who minted something because the tokens were really worthless. He just wanted to track engagement on his platform.
Right.
And it was clever. And it made me think like, wow, that's kind of an interesting idea, like making a token that anybody can send anywhere. Like, how do we do that on a UTXO model? You can't really.
Well, he's also doing performance art that illustrates
Yes.
why the UTXO model is worthwhile, because that is
Right.
not possible, right? Once you hold tokens in your wallet,
Yes.
only you as the holder of those keys can send them. Now, we could
Yes.
make something similar where those tokens go to some validator address and give people the experience of anybody being able to unlock them. But the moment they get to that end user point, There's nothing that can unlock them.
Right. And that's why I was thinking maybe then if the token can't be sent, maybe what the token represents could be changed by anybody. And that would be the visual
Yeah,
representation
that's right.
that you see.
That's
So that was
pretty
sort of,
interesting.
yeah, that was how I came
That
to
could
this
be
idea. Like,
that could be fun to look at.
yeah,
But yeah,
fun to
so
play with.
as we continue to dream about the possibilities for fungible tokens here, hopefully you've got enough homework.
I got a lot of homework. Yes, you definitely helped me. Yeah. I have
We
a lot
we
of
never quite touched the end maker endpoint, but I have a feeling if you learn a little bit of T3, then we can
Yes.
circle back to this sometime and look at how to build that TRPC router to do what you need to do.
Right. I mean, just you showing me how you had ganged up all of your sort of your what would be route commands inside that
Right.
file was very helpful. That makes a lot of sense. I was just curious how that was going to take place. And it's that
Cool.
right there. Yes. Yeah.
And
So I got a lot of homework. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Thanks for dropping by today.
Awesome.
Harsha,
I
Arif,
took
Alfin, Sievra,
up all
I'm
the
saying it
time.
right. Daniel, hopefully this was useful to you guys. And if you ever have similar questions, please stop by the same way. My goal for this space is to not set the agenda. And it's my favorite thing in the world to follow people wherever their questions are. So keep them coming, y'all. And if you're watching this video later, we meet Wednesdays, Thursdays. We meet for specific purposes on Mondays and Tuesdays too. If you're interested in Go coding or learning more about Mesh, just drop by. All of the details are at gimbalabs.com/calendar, or you can find the same calendar right here at plutuspbl.calendar. So wherever you go, just find this calendar right here. All the Zoom links you need are here, and we'll look forward to getting together.
Yep. Thanks again, James. I will definitely be stopping in again, and might not be next week because I have a lot of homework to do. But if I do get somewhere, I'll stop in again.
All good things. Thanks, Jonah. All right. See y'all soon.